Have you ever wondered how the United States came to be the superpower it is today? This story begins with the audacious journey of the first settlers who braved uncharted waters in pursuit of a dream of freedom, of opportunity, of a new beginning. In the early 17th century, a small ship named the Mayflower carried 102 brave souls across the rough Atlantic. These pilgrims, as we know them today, were seeking religious freedom and a fresh start. Upon their arrival, they drafted and signed the Mayflower Compact, a significant step in the development of democratic governance. These pilgrims were the first of many. Over the next century, waves of settlers, each with their dreams and aspirations, followed. They established 13 colonies along the eastern seaboard, from Massachusetts in the north to Georgia in the south. These colonies, each unique in its culture and economy, laid the foundation of what would become the United States. This period also witnessed a significant religious and social transformation known as the First Great Awakening. This religious revival swept through the colonies in the mid-18th century, challenging established religious authorities and breathing new life into American religion. It not only influenced religious practices, but also sparked a new spirit of independence and individualism that would later fuel the revolutionary fervor. While the colonies were growing and thriving, a sense of unrest was also brewing among the colonists. They began to question the heavy taxes and strict rules imposed by the British Crown. This unrest, like a slow-burning fuse, was inching its way towards an explosive revolution. After all, nothing worth having comes without a struggle. While the colonies were growing, tensions were also brewing, tensions that would lead to a revolution. Imagine 13 colonies challenging the might of the British Empire. What led to such audacity? Tensions were brewing in the American colonies long before the first shots of the Revolutionary War were fired. The British Empire, a global superpower, seemed invincible. Yet the colonists, taxed without representation, felt the bitter sting of injustice. It was in the face of such oppression that the seeds of rebellion were sown. The Boston Tea Party of 1773 was one such act of defiance. In protest against the Tea Act, a group of colonists disguised as Mohawk Indians boarded 3 British ships and dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. The incident sent a clear message to the British: the colonists would not be taxed without their consent. In response to the growing unrest, the First Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia in 1774. The delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies gathered to articulate their grievances and to petition the British Crown for redress. Yet their pleas fell on deaf ears. The British government tightened its grip, leading the colonies on a path to war. On July 4, 1776, the Second Continental Congress declared the colonies free and independent states. The Declaration of Independence, penned by Thomas Jefferson, was a bold assertion of the colonies' rights and their resolve to govern themselves. The war that ensued was brutal and bloody, with victories and losses on both sides. But the tide turned in favor of the colonists at the Battle of Yorktown in 1781, effectively ending the war. The Treaty of Paris, signed 2 years later, recognized the sovereignty of the United States, marking the end of British rule. With independence won, it was time to build a nation. How does a newly independent nation create its own identity? In the wake of the Revolutionary War, America faced this very question. The answer came in the form of the Constitution, a document that would shape the nation's identity and lay the groundwork for centuries to come. Drafted in 1787, this remarkable blueprint outlined a system of government where power was shared between a central authority and individual states, a delicate balance that continues to define American politics to this day. But a constitution alone does not a nation make. The establishment of the federal government breathed life into these hallowed words, transforming them from mere ink on parchment into a living, breathing entity. This new government, led by the nation's first president, George Washington, faced the Herculean task of uniting 13 disparate states under one banner. And unite they did. The early presidencies were marked by a series of triumphs that helped to solidify the young nation's identity. One of these was the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, an event that saw the United States double in size virtually overnight. This colossal acquisition, negotiated by President Thomas Jefferson, marked the beginning of America's westward expansion. Yet the road to nationhood was not without its bumps. The War of 1812, often referred to as the Second War of Independence, tested the mettle of the young nation. Despite the challenges, the war ended in a draw, and America emerged with its sovereignty intact, a testament to the resilience and determination of its people. The nation was expanding, growing in strength and confidence. Yet this growth came with its own set of challenges. The demand for resources soared, setting the stage for a period of intense and often ruthless expansion. As the nation expanded, so did the demand for resources, leading to a dark chapter in American history. What happens when a nation's ideals clash with its economic interests? This question was brutally answered by the United States in the mid-19th century, as the nation was torn apart by the Civil War. The seeds of this conflict were sown long before the first shots were fired. Let's rewind to 1820, when the Missouri Compromise was enacted. This piece of legislation attempted to maintain a balance of power between the slaveholding South and the free North by admitting Missouri as a slave state and Maine as a free state. But this delicate balancing act couldn't hold forever. Fast forward to 1857, and the Dred Scott decision further inflamed tensions. The Supreme Court ruled that Scott, a slave who'd lived in free territories, was not a citizen and therefore had no right to sue for his freedom. This decision deeply divided the nation and set the stage for the bloody conflict to come. The Civil War itself, fought from 1861 to 1865, was a grim testament to the deep-seated issues within the country. It was not just a battle of armies, but a battle of ideologies that questioned the very soul of the nation. In the midst of this turmoil, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, declaring that all slaves in Confederate-held territory were to be set free. This was a pivotal moment, shifting the war's focus towards the moral issue of slavery and setting the stage for its eventual abolition. But the end of the war didn't mean the end of the country's struggles. The period of Reconstruction that followed sought to rebuild the South and reintegrate it into the Union. This was a time of significant social and political change as the nation grappled with the consequences of the war and the abolition of slavery. In the ashes of the war, a new America was born, but not without its challenges. The Civil War and Reconstruction period shaped the nation in profound ways, laying the groundwork for the America we know today. But the scars of this period remain, reminding us of the cost of division and the ongoing struggle for true equality. How did the United States transform from a divided nation into a global superpower? As we enter the 20th century, the United States found itself thrust onto the world stage, beginning with its involvement in the two world wars. The First World War saw the nation mobilizing its vast resources, not only on the battlefield but also on the home front, marking a new era of international engagement. Then, the Second World War, a conflict of unprecedented scale, again saw the United States playing a crucial role. It emerged from the war as one of the world's leading powers, its economic and military might unparalleled. The aftermath of the war also brought about the onset of the Cold War, a period of political and military tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, a tension that would shape much of the latter half of the 20th century. While the nation was making its mark on the global stage, it was also undergoing significant changes at home. The Civil Rights Movement, a struggle for social justice and equality for African Americans, became one of the most important social movements of the 20th century. It not only led to landmark legislation that outlawed racial discrimination, but also inspired other movements for equality and justice. As we moved into the 21st century, the United States continued to evolve and adapt. The digital revolution, characterized by rapid advancements in technology and the rise of the internet, transformed every aspect of American life. It reshaped the economy, redefined communication, and revolutionized the way we work, learn, and interact. From its humble beginnings to its rise as a global superpower, the history of the United States is a testament to the resilience and ambition of its people. The United States has weathered wars, social upheavals, and technological revolutions, and yet, it continues to stand strong, a beacon of democracy and progress in the world.